Hey everyone, we just got back from the card show this weekend, and this was our haul. We're going to see which of these cards is ready for grading, and I'm going to take you along with me throughout the whole process, starting with getting our station ready supplies. I always use a microfiber cloth just to buff out any small stuff, get off debris from the cards. Of course, clean card savers and card sleeves. These are super important if you're going to submit cards for grading. I use the card saver ones. They're a little bit bigger than the twos, and they fit all the cards nice and easily. Finally, I use this ring light just to the right of the camera, and that is invaluable when looking at cards up close for dents, scratches, dings, things like that. Things that are hard to see with the eye. So now we are going to start the process. And as you can see, there's a variety of cards, starting with probably the biggest card from the haul, this Malik Neighbors Select Tie-Dye number to 25. And I'm carefully getting it out and basically trying to look it over in different angles of the light, really just looking for any scratches, dings, surface nicks, things like that. The front of this one looks pretty clean, and the centering is good too. As you know, in grading, the four main categories you're looking for are centering, surface, edges, and corners. And that centering is always tricky on these cards, but it looks pretty good to me. Of course, you got to look down the back, which they typically don't grade as harshly, but it's still important. On these select cards, the surface is what I'm always looking for. And I do see a little tiny surface scratch there, but it's so small. I don't think it's enough, especially for a card this big. This is a $200 to $250 raw card. It's worth it for me to send in. I would predict that this gets a 10. And that's excellent. I mean, that's a huge multiplier in a 10. I'm sure there aren't many graded. This is a little bit of a smaller card, and I will, from time to time, look at these cards for grading. My goal is to at least 2x my money. So if this card cost me $5, it cost me $20 to grade, as you can see, I'm noticing there's already a surface indent. So that one goes into the non-graded pile pretty quickly. But I am looking for cards that will 2x my money. So if I have $25 into the card and the grading cost, then after fees, I'm looking to sell the card for $50, right? So this is a super timely card, this Pete Crow Armstrong rookie. And you notice I turned it to the back first. I know these Topps Finest cards have a lot of color on the back border, and I'm just seeing all sorts of speckles and things on the front. I'm going to sort of helplessly try and buff this one out, but I don't think it's going to work. But when you're looking through cards for grading, it's not always a quick process. And so any little thing you can do to speed up that process while still being thorough can really help you. And so knowing the sets, knowing which sets and cards tend to have surface damage, which sets and cards tend to have corner damage, which sets and cards have white backgrounds versus dark backgrounds. You can see on this card, the lighter background means it's easier to hide imperfections on corners. I'm noticing a little bit of softness on that corner, but I don't think it's enough for me to reject this card. And as I looked at the front, other than a little wiping down, it's really clean. This is one of those kind of rarer cards, I would say. It's a speckle parallel or a mini diamond, I think. I don't remember specifically, but Bo Nix college card, it's going to appeal to a very specific collector. And sometimes I like sending those in because that means there'll be a very low population. And I haven't checked the pop on that, but it's got to be pretty low. In fact, we'll put it up on screen so you can see for that Bo Nix. All right, and Ellie De La Cruz, immediately I know this 2022 Bowman's Best set is notorious for surface and edge wear, corner damage. It's just not a very good QC set, and you can see right away I'm seeing that little ding on that corner. Almost certainly going to refuse this card, which is a shame. This is one of those I'd really love to get. You can see I'm trying to buff out on the jersey there, and that's not really working. You can see the process takes some time, right? We're using the microfiber cloth to get any debris off the card. We are checking very carefully corners and edges. We're putting new sleeves on the cards most of the time, keeping our workstation clean. This whole process does take time. Now here we do have two Aaron Judge Topps Pristine cards. This was cool. The seller, one of my favorite sellers at the card show that I usually see, had two of the same card. and I think I paid 15 bucks a piece on these. But I love sending in duplicates too, because again, if you think about streamlining your process, you are looking at the same card twice. So you, after doing it once, you kind of know what to look for on the second one. These pristine cards are really nice. Lots of white on the card, which again, as we learned, kind of hides some of the potential imperfections, but these both, spoiler alert, looked awesome. And I think the first one was a little cleaner than the second, but both have a high shot at a 10. When I buy cards with the intention of grading them, I'm looking for big name players, popular players, cards that others would want to collect. I'm looking for parallels, serial numbered cards. In the case of the Bo Nix card, sometimes I'm looking for unique versions of that player's card. I'm noticing a little bit of surface stuff on this second judge, but again, I end up sending this one in as well. And I try to keep my price point, at the very minimum $5 to $10 raw for the card. That's a recent trend for me. When I was grading the very beginning years ago, I would grade any and everything, and with mixed results, right? Because you could get a 10, but if the player's not desirable, then that card's just going to sit in your store or in your card show box. And I do try to reuse top card savers when I can. You can see this Jalen Brunson. Immediately, I notice some stuff on the surface there, some gunk. Yeah, this is kind of a tricky one there. I'll try buffing it, and but when that one doesn't come out, it's immediately going to be one of those that we put in the do not grade pile. Speaking of the do not grade pile, as I pull out this Uptown Terry Bradshaw, which unfortunately had a little bit of print lines at the top. I don't know if those would have been enough to reject it, but ultimately I was not confident enough that it would get a 10. So I put it in the do not grade pile. Yeah, you can see one or two of those little lines at the top. The rest of the card was beautiful, but a great card. That'll probably go into my whatnot pile, because those cards are always great for whatnot. As you can see, there was a fingerprint mark on the back, and we buffed that right out. That was super simple and easy. But as I was saying with the do not grade pile, if there is ever significant damage to the card that would make it a lower grade, such as a 7 or a 6, less than near mint, of course, I'm always going to disclose that when selling. That's part of keeping your reputation, keeping it strong, and making sure you disclose those things to your buyers. There's oftentimes with cards that if I'm not sure or not confident in the condition, what I'll do is I will just submit that to ComC to sell it there and let them make their condition guesstimates on the cards and make those notes. That's my way of making sure that I'm disclosing all that I can see on the card and then letting them do their job with those cards. So sometimes there are cards where I'm not quite sure. I'll submit it to them and let them sell the card for me. You can see there's a little bit of surface damage right on the Warm Moon of this card. Surprisingly, the back was pretty clean. You can see all the black there, a little bit of edge wear at the bottom, but not terrible. Ultimately, I passed on this card mainly because it's kind of an obscure card from an obscure set, and it's unlicensed. And I do know that those aren't going to be cards that sell as high. As cool as it is, it's a sick parallel to 20. It's not as desirable for being unlicensed, and didn't want to take the chance for it to not get a 10. I'm aiming for 10s with all of these modern cards. And this Alexander Sarr was super underpriced. This is the Green Stars parallel, and you can see it's a little off-center, and off-center top-bottom. Yeah, with PSA's new centering standards, that one probably is not going to make the cut. It's not as good of a card or player. If it were super low-numbered, maybe I'd risk it for the biscuit, but ultimately this one goes in the reject pile. I was really excited to find this next card, and you're about to see it. It's a cool color match, red on red, Shohei Ohtani, 2023 Topps, red foil numbered to 199. And these foil cards are really condition sensitive, and this one looked really clean. It's nice and centered. I like when the borders are easy to tell centering. It makes it easier for me to decide if it's worth grading. And the back is pretty nice. I wiped down the edges and corners just a little bit, but overall this one was a beauty. You can see there's a tiny something there. I think that was a little bit of edge wear, but I don't think it's enough to avoid sending. And this one I think could 10. It's got a legit shot, which would be a really nice come up on this card. The next couple cards were just sort of long shots. They're older cards, Von Miller rookies, both of them numbered from 2010 or 2011. The older the card, in my general experience, the harder it is to get a high grade. If you think about for as long as those cards have been out, almost 15 years, like the amount of condition issues that could occur in those cards, it's no surprise to be finding small things like corner and surface issues. So sometimes I'll throw them in my grading pile again on the off chance that I gem one of these older cards. That could be a pretty nice improvement on that card's value, especially with low populations for cards like this. But I don't put a ton of stock into them, and I rarely buy them for that reason. I was really hoping this shade would be clean. It's a really neat orange parallel out of Monopoly, numbered to 124, I think. But you can see there were just a few spots there that I could not buff out. Sometimes I'll even take the card off screen and like you're fogging up glass, blow air on there just to get a little condensation on the card. Very lightly, of course, but that was not working on that one. This would have been such a great card to send in grading, but immediately I found a little dent. These thicker cardstock cards like Obsidian and Spectra, they're really condition sensitive and really tough to get high grades on. You can see I'm seeing stuff all over the place. I even try to get the camera to settle there as I'm hitting the camera a lot. We're not getting earthquakes in St. Louis. No, that's me, just an amateur trying to film content here. But this is the Neon Flood. I believe it's a case hit, but that one was not clean enough to send, unfortunately. And again, I'm trying to only send these cards if I think they have a legit shot at a 10. Sometimes you'll get a value bump at a 9, but the way grading is these days, for as long as the cards are away and the amount of money you're paying for the card and the grading service, it's just not worth it to risk it if you are likely to get a 9 on some of these. And of course, every grading order is going to have those. But once I notice more than one significant thing, the cards are pretty much deemed do not grade, and they go into the do not grade pile. This Manzardo, they had a little bit of funky something on the back, and I even used a tiny bit of saliva, not a lot, but just to lick your finger and kind of wet the back of the card to wipe it down. Sometimes that helps if it's some gunk, but on that case, it was not coming off. I love grading Otani inserts, especially from popular sets like Topps Chrome Cosmic. They're tough, and I think that's why they hold such value. I mean, they're really neat looking cards, but this one you can see tons of color on the back of the card, which means condition is really tricky. This one, a little bit easier to find clean. The front looks pretty centered to me. I wasn't noticing a ton on here, but I think when I turned it to the back, I found just a couple little nicks. There was a little something in that corner. Tried to kind of buff that out. Oftentimes the microfiber cloth will get that type of stuff off, but you can see like whitening on corners is going to be really common on these types of cards. And again, it's just not something I'm willing to risk with all of the money and time that goes into these graded cards. This Herbert is a beauty. I really love the orange, not a color match, but just the orange accent on that card. It's not numbered. And again, centering is challenging on these select cards. These were not very well centered cards. I thought that was a little scratch, but it was his sock. And I kind of wiped down the front and it looked pretty good, but as you can see when I turned to the back, that's where I noticed most of the corners had a little bit of whiting on them. Plus, you can see that edge up there. And these select die cuts are just so tough to get in high grade. So ultimately, I had to pass on this Herbert. That one will go to ComC, and will probably sell pretty well, 20, 25 bucks on ComC. Okay, just a few more cards here. The Jalen Hurts rookie. I always love when I can find clean cards from the 2020 class. Hurts, Herbert, Burrow, Love, etc. And this one was really nice looking. Very little surface issue, And the corners looked clean. Just a really beautiful card. A little tiny dimple, but I'm not afraid of that. Those little dimples, if you've got one or two, especially on the back of cards like Mosaic, the grading companies know that that is a Panini issue and typically will not dock you for that. Now, if it's littered with those, do not send it in. But like one on that Hertz card, oh yeah, that's going in. This one I was excited about too. A Shea Gilgeous-Alexander Razzle Dazzle case hit from Mosaic. Beautiful looking card. It did have a little bit of surface gunk, but I was able to get that off pretty easily with the microfiber cloth. And then on the back, again, lots of color. That usually makes me nervous for the corners and edges, but this one was pretty well taken care of. I didn't see anything that threw me off or made me think that this one wouldn't 10, and that's a nice come up on this Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP and now world champion of the NBA. And finally, oh, this was such a neat card to find. And in this condition, the Donruss Choice Ant-Man rookie, Anthony Edwards. The centering on this one kind of threw me for a loop. I couldn't quite tell, and you can see I'm kind of looking it over there, but I think it's centered. It's just got a pretty thick border. And again, the back, I'm usually expecting these paper cards like on the Ohtani to have surface and corner and edge wear, but this one was really nice. I gave it a little bit of a wipe down with the cloth, and this last one, I'm going to send this off. A little bit of something that I think I may have gotten on the card there. Yeah, I got most of that off. That's great. I think this one will 10. I'm really encouraged by that. Love to get big name players, rookies, parallels in 10s. So this is the pile of do not grade. And again, most of this will go to ComC. A few of them I'll list on eBay. And I always try to make sure to note any major condition issues. Some of these are still near mint cards. Remember, near mint is an 8 or better. Near mint is a 7 or better. So many of those will go to ComC. And here is our grading submission. We're going to be sending all these off. The Malik Neighbors tie-dye, the Bo Nix Campus Captains, 2 Aaron Judge purples, the Shohei Ohtani red color match to 199, the red-green Hertz rookie, the Shea Razzle Dazzle, and the Ant-Man. When these come back from grading, you can expect a grading reveal video, and we'll see what we got on all these. Thanks, everyone. Subscribe for more.